Well, we have to talk about how people are starting to back out of even more orders in today's market. I'm talking about custom factory orders, and the orders that are getting backed out on are quite surprising. But before we get in this video, as always, if you want to save time and money the next time you purchase a car, link to my car buying guide in the description down below. And then if you want to see more videos just like this, then I recommend you subscribe because I post content every single day. Let's get into it. So for me to properly go over the situation that is currently occurring, we have to talk about what ordering has been like in the US over the last decade or so. So prior to COVID, you actually didn't see a whole lot of custom orders on vehicles with most manufacturers because the typical procedure is a dealership would basically just order a bunch of cars from a manufacturer, and then those cars would sit on the dealer's lot, and then as customers would come in and look at those cars, they would slowly buy the cars off of the dealer lots. And obviously this led to, customers having to concede with certain features because, they just wanted a vehicle right there and then, and, maybe the vehicle with the exact features they wanted wasn't there, so they just take something. And then also it put dealers in a situation where they had certain inventory that they just simply wouldn't sell because they just couldn't find a customer for the vehicle. And so what this ultimately led to is, customers were able to pretty much get vehicles right away. And then they also were able to pay less for vehicles because, the longer vehicles sat on dealer lots, the bigger the discounts became. And so it seemed like it was a pretty good situation for consumers overall. And, dealers at the end of the day, although, they're not happy that they have to discount vehicles a bunch, we're happy that they were just selling vehicles and able to make a living off of selling vehicles. Now, if you contrast that with what happened throughout COVID, completely opposite, because once COVID struck, we obviously had the big buying frenzy and everything got bought up. And so dealers were in a situation where they had no cars on their inventories. And so what this then basically pushed everyone to do is to start ordering. Now, this is actually pretty common in places around the world. Like Europe, for example, pretty much everyone custom orders vehicles over there. And so the US started to look like other places in the world. And so what this then led to is just a completely different buying dynamic. Instead of going into a dealership to look at a bunch of inventory, you would instead go into a dealership to find no inventory, and then you would have to basically just look through a bunch of different papers, decide what options you want, and then you'd order a vehicle. And this was actually working out very well in dealers' favors because, they weren't having to discount vehicles as much because, again, there was no inventory. And so it's like, if you want to get this vehicle, you got to order it, and you're going to have to pay full price because we've got this long list of other people that want to order that vehicle as well. And so if you want to be a part of this, this is your price, right? So dealers obviously absolutely love the situation, and consumers were moving along with it because the order take rate was extremely high. Yes, even during the buying frenzy, there were people that backed out of orders, but the percentage was extremely low. Now, we don't have official national figures, but I can tell you, based on what I personally saw with all the dealers that I film with, it was like, maybe 1% or sometimes even less for certain dealers because, people felt like that this whole car shortage thing was going to last forever. And then if they didn't get that car right then and there, they just simply wouldn't get it. And so nobody was really backing out of their orders. And now that has changed. But of course, 2022 came and went, and it wreaked havoc on the whole ordering monopoly that dealerships had built up over the course of the pandemic. And so, if you look at the market, it really shows what happened, because if you look at the end of 2021, people were willing to pay over MSRP for new cars and even used cars, right? Over original MSRP. And then you look at the end of 2022, and not only were people not willing to pay MSRP for new cars, they basically wanted to pay under invoice for a lot of stuff. Like the deals that were had in December were actually pretty good in conjunction to MSRP and invoice because of what dealers were having to discount off of the prices of vehicles to get customers to buy. And so that just shows a lot of demand destruction. And so naturally, this creates a lot of trends within the ordering world. So first off, as 2022 progressed, fewer and fewer people were willing to custom order a vehicle because inventory increased as time went on throughout 2022. And so people saw that they didn't have to special order a vehicle to basically see it. Like they could just go to a dealership and that vehicle would probably be there because again, inventories are so much bigger than they were last year. And if they like the vehicle and if they can make a good deal on it, then they'll buy it. If they can't, then well, they're just going to continue to wait. So people feel like they again have power with new vehicles where they don't just have to order something, right? Because there's nothing on lots. And if they don't order something, they're never going to get something. That feeling of FOMO is completely gone at this point. So fewer people are ordering vehicles. But there's another problem with the situation. Because the order times for certain vehicles were so long, there are a lot of people that ordered vehicles a year ago, 2 years ago, sometimes even 3 years ago that still haven't received their vehicle. And some of these vehicles are finally starting to show up. And do you think that these people are still excited about that vehicle or still going to pick up that vehicle? In some cases, yes. But in a lot of cases, these people are like, no, I'm not interested anymore. It's been a year. It's been 2 years. It's been 3 years. I don't want this vehicle anymore. I have moved on. And frankly, the market is not what it was a couple of years ago, right? People are like, oh, interest rates were a lot lower back then and vehicle prices were a lot lower back then. So the order made sense 2 years ago, but it doesn't make sense today. And so this is obviously leaving dealers with even more inventory. But the interesting trend that is starting to happen right now is that people are not only backing out of, what I'd consider regular vehicles that I'm not saying that they're not desirable, but they're not desirable in the sense that they would go for over MSRP in a normal market, are being backed out of. But there are also vehicles that are considered very desirable that would normally go for substantial amounts over MSRP in a normal market that people are backing out of. I have seen several situations where people ordered, like the new Ford Bronco Raptor, for example, and they didn't pick up their allocation. And that's a vehicle that right now someone could literally pick up their order for and then go and sell it for a big profit in the used car market. But people aren't doing it, right? And so it sounds crazy on the surface, but it shows the demand destruction that we are seeing. And so what this is starting to look like on the open market is we're starting to see more and more new cars available and a lot of these specialty orders available and a lot of these, again, special vehicles that people are usually really hyped about, and they're not so hyped about them anymore. Now let's talk about how you can practically use this information to help you out as a buyer. First off, with more dealer inventory, that means that you have more negotiating power and you just have more options to look at so you can finally go shopping again. And then on the ordering side of things, which is what this video is based around, we'll understand that if you go in and put in an order now, you actually will probably be able to get a pretty good deal because although dealers are getting burned on orders right now, anyone who's coming in and ordering a vehicle at this point with everything that's happening in the market is going to have a lot of power because these dealers are going to be really excited that you're going to be committed to purchasing that vehicle. And so use that to your advantage and understand that now is actually a much better time to order than what we have seen over the course of the last few years. And then the next thing to note is, yes, there's a lot of orders that are getting backed out on. And so pay attention to this inventory because the vehicles that are ordered with weird options are going to sit on dealer lots for a long time, which means that you're going to have a pretty good chance at negotiating a decent amount off of the price in those vehicles. And then specialty vehicles are also getting backed out on. So what you need to understand is stop paying market addendums. They're not worth it at this point. There is very, 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 very few, and I'm talking about like 0.00001% of specialty vehicles that are still actually worth paying any sort of market adjustment for. And the reason I say that they're still quote unquote worth it is because you'd be able to go and flip it and sell it for more on the open market than what these dealers are currently asking. But that's pretty much all gone away. Like almost every single vehicle that has a market adjustment on it, and I've done the research before this video, does not have that same value in the wholesale market. Like Ford Raptors, for example, dealers will ask $10,000, $15,000, $20,000 over MSRP for them. If you then take that same Raptor and sell it at auction, good luck even getting MSRP for that truck at this point. Seriously. And if you want to go and sell it on the used market, yeah, you might see some used prices for Raptors over original MSRP, but they're not selling like they used to. And that's just one example. There are so many other cars, Honda Civic, Type R, the new GR Corolla, any of these vehicles that are coming out that seem really hot that people are willing to pay market premiums over MSRP, they're just losing that money. I promise you that. Any amount that people pay over MSRP for vehicles right now in today's market with everything that's happening is gone. So if you pay $10,000 over for a car, just understand that you might as well light $10,000 on fire. And so if you're the smart consumer that's going to take a step back and be patient, understand that more and more of these specialty vehicles are going to start piling up on dealer lots. Now, obviously, they're not built in huge numbers, but more of them are going to become available. And so you're going to be able to get those MSRP deals and potentially potentially some under MSRP deals as well. That's going to sum things up.